Hey there, and welcome back to Badass Branding. We are still in Module 3, Brand Identity, and this is Lesson 4. We're going to be talking about your logo. You finally made it here. And we'll start with the truth bomb, and that is your brand is not your logo. Oftentimes, a lot of online entrepreneurs who are just starting out, one of the first things they do is they rush to go get a cool and fancy logo done, and they often think that that is their brand, but really it is not. And if you've made it this far through all of these lessons and modules, you probably understand that by now. So in this lesson, you're going to learn what the purpose of your logo is, and you're going to learn the different types of logos, and I'll show you some examples. And then I'm going to walk you through how to create your own simple text-based logo. So let's get started. So what is the purpose of your logo? Well, company logos are visual representation of your company, right? So it might also convey something specific about your company. So it could have an icon that's related to the products and services that you sell. It could have some sort of conceptual thing that represents something specific about your business. And personal brand logos are also a visual representation of your company, and they will typically just be your name in a typographical treatment or a monogram of sorts. And typically these will not have the conceptual side of it, but it can have the conceptual side of it. But as you're starting out, I always say start with a simple text-based logo so you can focus on growing your business. So that way, as you gain traction, you can later evolve your brand into something more conceptual when it comes to your logo. So the purpose of your logo is quite simply, it's a quick identifier of your brand, right? Some people see it over time, and over time they will start to remember what it is. And then that creates that familiarity over time. And by doing that, that helps build trust and authority. As you continue to put your stuff out there, people will see it over and over and over again and start to remember you. And sometimes the logo can, like I say, convey certain aspects of your brand. So if you're we'll go back to the yoga coach. It could have some kind of lotus flower or something like that, which I've seen a lot of. But it can have those kind of icons that are associated with your business as part of the logo. So there are 5 main types of logos, and we'll go through them right here. So the first one is a text-based logo, and this is what I recommend you do if you are first starting out and DIYing a lot of the stuff. But there are 2 sort of categories under the text-based logo. One is a word mark and one is a letter mark. And the word mark is essentially the company name spelled out without any symbols, right? Or it could be your name too. And in the letter mark, that's typically the initials of a longer name or a monogram. Most personal brands are going to tend to have a word mark or letter mark, and you've probably seen this online. If you've been through the lessons in this course, you've seen Bobby Klinks is a word mark. He also has a letter mark too as part of his monogram. My logo is a word mark. Amy Porterfield's, all of the big name entrepreneurs have word marks and or letter marks as their logo. And some examples here, as you can see, there's Bobby's, Amy's, and mine, and then even some big name companies like restaurants that aren't personal brands like Five Guys, Tiffany, Wynn, Coke, Google, and Sony. These are all word marks, so you can see they're stylized, but they're just word marks. There's no concept behind them. Now the letter mark, these are going to be your monograms. Now these are very stylized, so you can see IBM stands for International Business Machine, but it's just known as IBM. And of course they have the lines that go through a sort of a slab serif font to sort of denote data. That is an older logo. It's definitely been around a long time, but it's stood the test of time, and that's a true hallmark of a logo. And then you can see CNN, while it's again stylized letters where it almost looks like a cable. It stands for Cable News Network. It almost looks like a cable, like an actual cable that goes through the center of all that. And then you have HP, which is pretty straightforward. It's just the initials for Hewlett Packard. It's just an H and a P in a circle. And then you have NASA. I can't remember exactly what that stands for, but it's National Aeronautics Space Administration or something like that. And it's got that cool sort of futuristic looking font. And then you have my own PS, Patrick Sesko, initial monogram logo, and Bobby Klinks. Next up, you have symbols. Now, these are iconic graphical symbols that are the mark that represent the brand. So brands with a lot of equity that have been around for a lot of time and have invested a lot of money in advertising can get by with just their symbol without any text. And some of those examples are, if I show you these, I don't even have to tell you the names of these businesses. I almost guarantee that everyone here will know the names of all of these companies. So next up, we have the combination mark, probably one of the most common, or the most popular, if you will. This is when a letter mark or a word mark are combined with a symbol. And we'll look at some of the same examples. So like you look at Adidas, Target, Nike, AT&T, Shell, and MasterCard. These are word marks that are combined with symbol. Now, if you look at the actual word marks in these logos, they're very simple. They're not super stylized or anything like that. It's the combination of the symbol and the word that create the actual logo. But all of these brands can stand alone without the actual word, just because they have been branded in a way that they have spent a lot of money on advertising and getting you to, getting their brand in front of people over time. Next up, we have an emblem. So these are usually logos that are contained in a shape, seal, crest, or a badge of some sort. And these are usually more detailed, and the words and the symbols are all combined into one thing. So some examples would be Harvard. A lot of universities you'll see will have these sort of seals. Starbucks, Harley Davidson we looked at earlier, NFL, Warner Brothers, and BMW. These tend to get more detailed as well and have a lot more components. And are oftentimes conceptual, because there's so many things going on in these logos. Each one of those things typically means something. And then next up, we have mascots. Now, these are technically not the actual logo, but often they are associated with the brand so much that that mascot actually becomes the logo. I don't see a lot of online entrepreneurs doing. In fact, I don't see any online entrepreneurs having sort of mascots other than themselves being the mascot or the face of their business. And some examples are, without even me saying most of these names, you will probably get them, but there's Kool-Aid, Planters Peanuts, The Monopoly Game, Natty Boh, Michelin, and Wendy's, just to name a few. Now, again, as online entrepreneurs, you're probably not going to create a mascot, but hey, maybe you will. So as you can see, there are a lot of options to choose from, but for our purposes here, we're going to focus on creating a simple text-based logo for our personal brands. You can still apply this this technique or this concept to a business brand, but this is really more designed for personal brands. That meaning you are the face of the business and the business is your name. So let's walk through creating a simple text-based logo. So to start off, the software that you're going to need. Now, I'm a graphic designer by trade and a brand designer, so I use the Adobe suite a lot, but Canva is probably going to be one of your best bets if you are starting out as an online entrepreneur, because one, there's a free version, and two, it's actually pretty darn good. You could technically use PowerPoint or G Suite, whether it's Google Slides. Canva, I would take Canva over the PowerPoint, but you can use those if you don't want to or don't have access to Canva. So the first step you're going to want to do, and I'm going to take you through step by step here, and I'm going to use my logo, how I created my logo, as the example for you to create yours. Not to say you should copy mine, but you're going to use this as sort of inspiration to build your own. So the first thing you want to do, and I'm also going to walk you through this with the idea that you are going to be using Canva, but the same applies no matter what software you're using. So create a poster size blank document in Canva, about 18 by 24 inches. You want something that's going to be large because we're going to use this as a big sort of canvas to experiment on. So then I want you to type out your name, whether if it's a personal brand, it's going to be your name and how you want it to appear. Or if it's a business brand, just type out the name of your business and type it out in several variations in the brand fonts that we chose. So if you're doing the one font model, you do the one font. If you're doing 2 and 3 font models, you do all 3 of those fonts. And For right now, we're only going to stay and work in black text. So as you can see in this example, I've got my name typed out 3 different ways: all caps, all lowercase, and then sentence case, and all in the 3 different fonts that I use. So step 2, I want you to start to experiment with your fonts and the placements of the words. And I always use the what if rule. So spend a little time on this and have some fun. But that what if rule means, like, what if the letters were stacked? What if the letters were all caps? What if they were all lowercase? What if they were offset a little bit? What if they were at an angle? What if the words were in different fonts? What if there was a line between them? What if it was in a shape? So think about these things. And there's really no limit to what you can do with the what if rule. The more time you spend on this, the more options and ideas you might have, because that's kind of how the creative process works. But for a simple text-based logo, you don't have to spend weeks on this, but definitely spend some time on it. Do a few pages of these and see what they might look like. And then step 3, this is what the taking action part comes into now. Is you want to decide on an option. Remember, we're not creating some big conceptual logo, so find one that you like and just decide on it and keep it simple. Always keep that keep it simple rule in the back of your mind. And I ended up just using my bolded sans serif font for my logo name. And as you can see on that example there, the top one is just my name written out in that font. But you'll notice, like, some of the spacing between the letters, like the P and the A and the T, they're really far, but then some of the other letters are close. And, you know, there are some drawbacks to Canva, that you don't have full control over a lot of the things that we need to do, like individual spacing between individual letters. That's something I would usually use in the Adobe suite. But a little tip for you to do this in, and I would suggest that most all of you are going to be doing this, is that create a separate text box for each letter, so that way you have that ultimate control of the letter spacing. So as you can see in that middle option, I put all of my letters in an individual text box, and I was able to move them to where the spacing was much more consistent and felt good. And once you kind of get that looking good, you kind of, for the final tweaks, I implement the what if rule. So in this case, I was like, well, what if the letters were, what if some of the letters were different shapes? Now, part of my branding and part of my design elements, I use fundamental shapes like triangles, squares, and circles, because I teach the fundamentals of branding for online entrepreneurs. So it made total sense for me to use a triangle for the A and a circle for the O. And I didn't overdo it. I just added those 2 things and replaced those 2 letters. And you can see what that does. So think about how that might, whether you're adding shapes, or maybe what if the letters were staggered a little bit or rotated. Think about those things, play with it, have some fun again. So like I say, definitely spend some time on this, but don't overthink it. Remember, you are not Nike, at least not yet. It's okay to aspire to that, but you want to create this logo that's going to be simple, so that way you can move on to growing your business and evolve it over time, and not trying to put the cart before the horse. So then the next step, step number 4, is now that you have decided on your final logo, now we can implement some color. You don't have to do this. This is not a mandatory thing. Some brands are just black and white. So obviously there's not going to be any color in there. So when you go back to the color exercise, you want to get your hexadecimal colors that you got from the color exercise, and you want to bring those into Canva. So you can see that screenshot there. In Canva, you just click on that little plus sign and you type in your hexadecimal color. That unique color will come up, and then you can just create a box on the page that has the color, and do that for every color, including your blacks and your whites. Now, step 5 is I want you to experiment with your brand colors. You've already had all your colors chosen now, so you don't have to think about that. So now you're just going to work within the confines of your color palette. So that overwhelm should be reduced considerably, because now you only have a small amount of colors. Now mine, I probably have more colors than you will, especially if you're starting out. So think about that too as well. And again, ask what if. What if all the letters were one color? What if they were in all, look at how it would look like in each and every one of your colors, but then say, well, what if one word was one color and another one was another color? So if you look at Bobby Klink's logo, his is typically either orange and black or orange and white. Think about how the colors might look against certain backgrounds and things like that. And then once again, decide on an option and go with it. It's just a matter of making that decision, being confident in your decision, knowing this is not, you're not tattooing yourself, you're not etching it in stone. This is something that can change over time. And then after that, you are going to finalize your color logo and create an all black version and an all white version. And these are going to be the final versions of your logo. And you can do that all in Canva. And then in step 7, what you want to do is, this is how you're going to create actual logo files that you can use to upload to, your web pages, your PDFs and all those things, and give to VAs and web developers and all that as part of your brand kit. So copy those final logos, the black version, the white version, and the color version, into a new Canva document. And I want the document to be pretty large. So in my case, my logo is very horizontal. So I chose a 12-inch wide or 15-inch wide page by, I don't know, I think it was 5 or 6 inches. It's very arbitrary, but it's basically the page is going to sort of be in the same size as your logo, but in proportion to your logo. So you can see that there in the examples. And then create a page for each logo, color, black logo and white logo, and put that logo on every page and center it. And you want to make sure you have enough white space around there so that way there's some breathing room. And then you're going to actually export those pages as final transparent PNG files out of Canva. And each one of those pages will end up being that version of the logo. And like I said, you can use these logos on websites, slide decks, PDFs, social media, etc. And so when you export these logos, you just want to go ahead and rename them. In my case, I have my name, black logo, my name, color, my name, white. And each one of those logos will be transparent logo files that you can use across social media. And going back to that page size, the reason why I want the page to be really large, like 12, 15 inches wide, is because these are PNG files. And these are what they call raster images. So if you make them too small, they'll be really blurry. So you want them really big, so that way if you size them down a little bit, they won't look pixelated or lose resolution. So I want you to take action now. I want you to go back and follow these steps and get cracking on your logo. Remember to keep it simple and just make decisions and move forward, and most importantly, have fun. And don't forget to definitely spend a little bit of time on this and try out many options so that way you can feel confident when you do make that decision on which one to go with. And that's it for this lesson. Just to recap here, we went over what the purpose of your logo is. We went over the different types of logos with a bunch of examples, and I walked you through how to create your own simple text-based logo. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about brand photography and other visual elements. So we'll see you in the next lesson.